I think the wildest part of this whole General Hospital mess is not even the prison angle. It is the trust. That's the real bomb under the table. Britt placing absolute trust in Lucas sounds almost sweet on paper, right? Almost. But in Port Charles, when somebody starts trusting somebody else too hard, that usually means the floor is about to drop out from under them. And honestly, that is exactly why this whole thing has me side-eyeing the situation. Like, nah, something is off here. Here is the part that hits me first. Rocco being the one who shot Cullum. That alone is enough to light the whole town on fire. Because now the story is not just about who got hurt, or who got arrested, or who is hiding what. It is about a kid, or a young man, carrying a secret that can wreck multiple lives at once. And if Rocco is the one holding that truth, then every conversation around him becomes loaded. Every silence matters. Every glance matters. That is soap opera territory, sure, but it is also a pretty real lesson about pressure. Secrets do not just sit there quietly. They rot. They spread. They make people act stupid, desperate, and scared. And that is where Britt comes in. I feel like Britt is being set up as the emotional center of this whole storm. She finds out the truth, or part of it, and instead of turning away, she protects Rocco. That tells me everything about her character in this scenario. She is not just reacting, she is choosing, and that choice matters. Because in moments like this, people reveal whether they are guided by panic or by loyalty. Britt, at least in this version of events, looks like someone who is willing to carry pain for someone else. That is not weakness. That is expensive. It costs you sleep. It costs you peace. It costs you the illusion that you can fix everything with one clean move. Now let me say this plainly. I do not think Britt trusting Lucas is the problem by itself. Trust is not the villain here. The real problem is timing. The timing is terrible. Britt may be right to think Lucas is the safest person she can talk to, but safe and stable are not always the same thing. Lucas might be caring. He might be loyal. He might even want to do the right thing. But in a story like this, wanting to do right is not the same as surviving the consequences. And that is where I start leaning into a darker interpretation. Because once Britt tells Lucas everything about what happened with Rocco, she is basically handing him a live grenade and asking him to hold still. I could be wrong, but I feel like this is the exact kind of setup that later gets described as a mistake nobody saw coming. Lucas may not even intend to betray her. That is the scary part. Betrayal does not always arrive wearing a villain hat and a sneer. Sometimes it arrives as fear. Sometimes it arrives as self-preservation. Sometimes it arrives with shaking hands and a voice that says, I didn't have a choice. That line? Yeah. That line wrecks lives. And Cullum, man, Cullum feels like the kind of guy who understands that truth is useless unless he can weaponize it. He does not need to go public. He does not need to make a scene. In fact, the cleanest revenge is usually the quietest one. That is why I keep thinking the danger is not an explosion in the open. It is a pressure campaign. It is threats. It is leverage. It is tell me what I want, or I make sure you regret breathing too loud. That kind of villainy is colder, smarter, nastier, and frankly, more believable in a soap world where everybody is carrying some secret they would rather die than admit. So here's where the scenario gets ugly. Lucas could get cornered, not because he wants to do wrong, but because Cullum might come at him sideways, threatening his life, his safety, maybe even someone he loves. And once a character is terrified enough, you cannot trust their judgment. That is human. That is messy. That is the point. A person can be loyal in their heart and still crack under enough pressure. I think that is what makes this possibility so painful. Lucas would not necessarily be betraying Britt out of cruelty. He could be doing it out of fear. And fear makes people talk. Fear makes people hand over secrets they swore they would never touch. Fear is the cheapest lockpick in the world. If Lucas does crack, then the fallout is brutal, because Britt would not expect it. Not from him. not after putting that kind of faith in him. And that's the real emotional knife twist. It is not just that the secret gets out. It is that Britt trusted the wrong moment, maybe the wrong person, maybe both. Or maybe, to be fair, she trusted the right person at the wrong time. That happens too. I think people forget that trust is not magic. Trust does not guarantee outcomes. Trust just means you are willing to be vulnerable. And vulnerability, in this show and in real life, is a gamble with no refund policy. What really pulls me into this whole thing is the idea that Britt might try to save Jason in a completely different way. That part gives the story some moral weight. Jason is in WSB prison, and the whole point here is that he does not deserve that. That is the emotional argument. That is the line in the sand. Britt is not trying to save him because it is convenient. She is trying to save him because it is right. I like that. I feel like it gives the story a pulse beyond the usual soap chaos. There is a real injustice here, even if everything around it is messy and overcooked and full of smoke. And Britt turning to Lucas as part of that plan actually makes sense to me. Lucas may be the one person she believes can help her think clearly. Not just emotionally, but strategically. She needs someone who can process the chaos with her, not just gasp at it. She needs someone who can help build a new path, not just point at the wreckage. So when Britt tells Lucas what happened with Rocco, she is not only confessing, she is recruiting. She is asking him to help her find a new angle, a new route, a way to get Jason out without blowing up the entire board. But here is the glitch in the machine. The more people you bring in to fix a secret, the more likely the secret dies in the process. That is not me being dramatic. That is just how these things go. Every extra witness is an extra risk. Every extra ally is an extra chance for the wrong word to slip out. And Lucas, even if he means well, may be carrying his own vulnerabilities. That is the part Britt may not see. She may think she is choosing a confidant, but she could actually be choosing the doorway through which the whole story collapses. I think the idea of Lucas being threatened into silence is even stronger than the idea of him immediately ratting anyone out. Silence is its own kind of betrayal when it costs lives. Imagine Lucas knowing what happened to Britt and Rocco, maybe even knowing Cullum is behind it, and still being unable to call the police or make a clean move. That is tense. That is nasty. That is the kind of helplessness that makes a character look guilty even when he is not. And soap operas love that kind of cruelty. They love putting somebody in a position where every option is bad. Speak up and somebody dies. Stay quiet and somebody disappears. That is not just drama. That is a trap. This is also where I start thinking about the educational side of the story because, yeah, there is one here. It is not just entertainment. It is a pretty sharp lesson in risk management, even if it is wrapped in hospital gowns and criminal threats. One lesson is that trust needs boundaries. Another is that secrecy multiplies danger when the wrong people are involved. A third is that fear can make even decent people unreliable. That last one matters more than people think. We all like to believe that loyalty is enough, but loyalty without a plan is just hope. And hope alone does not stop somebody like Cullum. Another lesson hiding in this chaos is the danger of operating alone. Britt may be brave, but bravery without backup can turn into a problem fast. If she tries to protect Rocco, save Jason, and outmaneuver Cullum all by herself, she is basically trying to juggle knives while the room is on fire. Not smart. Not sustainable. You need people. You need discretion. You need timing. And you need to know which confidant can handle the load. That is why Lucas matters so much in this scenario. He's either the stabilizer or the crack in the foundation. There really is no middle ground once the pressure starts. And Cullum, he is the type who would not simply punish Britt and Rocco out in the open. No, I think he would go the sneaky route. He would let them think they are safe, then hit them where it hurts most. Kidnapping, isolation, disappearance, all that ugly stuff. That is the kind of revenge that says, I do not need applause, I need control. If Cullum views Britt and Rocco as enemies, then keeping Jason locked up becomes secondary. The real goal becomes punishment. Personal punishment. Quiet punishment. The kind that makes everyone else wonder what happened until it is already too late. And Lucas knowing but not being able to say anything, that is a nightmare. That is the sort of setup that turns a character into a ghost in his own storyline. He sees the danger. He knows the name. He understands the pattern. But every door is locked. Every call would expose him. Every move could get somebody killed. That is not just suspense. That is psychological torture. And from a story standpoint, it is powerful because it forces the audience to sit in that discomfort too. We know enough to be scared, but not enough to fix anything. I keep coming back to Britt because she is the one who will pay the emotional price first. She is trusting Lucas with raw truth, and that means she is opening herself up to the full blast of whatever comes next. If Lucas keeps her secret, then she may be forced to make another impossible choice. If Lucas folds, then Britt gets blindsided. And if Cullum moves first, then both Britt and Rocco may end up in a situation that becomes life or death before anyone can react. That is the nightmare chain reaction. One small decision, one conversation, one confession, and suddenly the whole town is standing in the smoke like, how did this even happen? I feel like this is why General Hospital keeps pulling stories like this. Because underneath the chaos, there is a real emotional engine. It is about protection. It is about guilt. It is about who tells the truth and who survives telling it. Britt protecting Rocco says she sees the kid's humanity. Lucas trying to help says he wants to be useful, maybe heroic. Cullum threatening everyone says power is his religion. And Jason sitting in prison for something he did not do? That is the injustice that keeps the whole thing morally charged. It is not just a rumor mill. It is a test of character. So, when I look at this whole setup, my read is simple. Even if the road there is a mess, Britt trusting Lucas could be the smartest move she has. Or it could be the one that ruins everything. Lucas may stay loyal, but I could be wrong, and fear might twist his choices before he even realizes it. Rocco's secret is not just a secret anymore. It is a weapon waiting for the wrong hand. And Cullum honestly looks like the kind of enemy who never misses a chance to use fear as bait. This is just my interpretation, but I think the most painful twist would be this. Britt does everything for the right reasons, Lucas tries to do the right thing, and still the whole thing falls apart because Cullum is one step ahead and fear gets the last word. That kind of storyline hurts, because it feels real. Not clean real, not neat real, just ugly human real. And that is the lane this story seems to be driving in. All screechy tires and bad timing. In the end, what I'm watching for is not just who knows the truth. I am watching who can live with it. Because in a story like this, the truth is never just information. It is pressure. It is a test. It is a fuse. And once it starts burning, somebody is going to get burned.